In the crucible of World War II's European theater, the city of Berlin stood as the epicenter of a cataclysmic struggle. By mid-April 1945, the fate of the war was all but sealed. Western Allied forces were advancing through northern Italy, and across the formidable Rhine River, American, British, and Canadian troops poised to deliver the final blow to the crumbling Nazi regime. Yet amidst the inexorable march of history, Adolf Hitler clung to his dwindling power, directing his beleaguered forces eastward in a desperate gambit to halt the relentless Soviet advance. As the 16th of April dawned, the Soviets embarked on Operation Berlin, a colossal plan aimed at encircling and capturing the Nazi capital. With 2.5 million soldiers and 6,000 tanks, backed by formidable artillery and air power, they began their slow, methodical advance toward the city of Berlin. Two of the most critical Soviet formations took center stage in this momentous confrontation. The First Belarusian Front, led by the brilliant strategist Marshal Georgy Zhukov, and the First Ukrainian Front, commanded by the seasoned Marshal Ivan Konev. Both marshals harbored aspirations of capturing Germany's largest city, the symbolic heart of the Nazi regime. On the opposing side, the defenders found themselves outnumbered and outgunned, desperately trying to fortify their positions along the Oder-Neisse river line in a last-ditch effort to slow the advancing Soviet juggernaut. The epicenter of the impending battle would be the Seelow Heights, a strategically vital stronghold situated only 60 kilometers east of Berlin. Here, Zhukov's First Belarusian Front would clash fiercely with the German forces. The ensuing combat would unfold over 4 intense days, exacting a heavy toll on both sides. Ultimately, on the 21st of April, the Seelow Heights fell, and the path to Berlin lay open, a door creaking slowly ajar in the twilight of Nazi Germany. Further to the south, Marshal Konev's First Ukrainian Front faced somewhat less resistance. Originally planning to circumvent Berlin to the south, Konev was abruptly ordered to redirect his forces and advance directly toward the city's southeastern outskirts. On the 25th of April, Soviet forces converged, and the city of Berlin was finally encircled by approximately 1.5 million troops. Inside the besieged city, life had devolved into a nightmarish existence, with millions of civilians struggling to survive in a city bereft of supplies and relentlessly pummeled by the merciless aerial onslaught of Allied air power. Berlin had been painstakingly divided into defensive zones, yet the German defenses were makeshift at best. Trams, filled with rubble, and hastily constructed anti-tank ditches were little more than minor impediments for the inexorably advancing Soviet forces closing in on the beleaguered city. The defenders themselves were an assortment of elderly men, youthful boys, and exhausted veteran units, forced to endure the unrelenting strain of months of combat. The city's labyrinthine streets and canals would become the crucible for an urban battleground of unparalleled brutality. Tanks, advancing without infantry support, would often meet their doom in the maze-like terrain. But the Soviets, seasoned by years of urban warfare, utilized overwhelming firepower as their primary tactic for dislodging stubborn defenses. Heavy artillery, including the devastating 203mm howitzers, reduced buildings to rubble before infantry, and armor pressed forward amidst a storm of high-explosive shells and submachine gun fire. Street by street, house by house, the Soviet forces ground their way toward the heart of Berlin. The central zone of Berlin, a focal point of the impending battle, contained some of the city's most iconic landmarks in 1945. At the forefront of the coveted target stood the Reichstag, a symbol of Nazi tyranny and the ultimate prize in the battle for Berlin. However, before reaching the Reichstag, the Soviet forces had to confront a series of formidable obstacles, including the Kroll Opera House and the wide streets flanked by buildings that offered ideal defensive positions for the German forces. The key to capturing the Reichstag lay with the Moltke Bridge, heavily fortified and targeted by the Germans' formidable anti-aircraft flak towers positioned miles away. The bridge would become a focal point of the battle, with the Soviets making repeated costly attempts to breach it. Tanks disintegrated under the relentless fire from the flak towers, but the Soviets persisted in their relentless drive. It was during this tumultuous period that the world witnessed the unwavering determination of the Soviet troops and the unyielding resolve of their leaders. Joseph Stalin, the Soviet premier, took a personal interest in the battle for Berlin, setting a firm deadline for the capture of the Reichstag by the 1st of May, International Labor Day. an important date in the Soviet calendar. This demand added immense pressure to the already strained Soviet troops. Several banner parties with the sole objective of planting the Soviet flag atop the Reichstag's roof were dispatched to bolster the besieging forces. As the pressure mounted, a sense of urgency pervaded the Soviet command. However, an erroneous report suggesting the sight of a red banner atop the Reichstag on the 30th of April triggered a fervent response from the commanders responsible. Fearful of the consequences of their mistake, they initiated concerted efforts to make this illusion a reality, even resorting to an attempt to drop a banner on the roof by aircraft. These efforts, however, proved futile. With time slipping away, an all-out assault was launched on the Reichstag. The ensuing battle would become a harrowing ordeal, both for the Soviet attackers and the entrenched German defenders. Room-to-room combat, marked by close-quarter fighting and hand-to-hand combat, raged on for hours on end amidst the labyrinthine interior of the Reichstag. Soviet troops once inside found themselves navigating a nightmarish maze of small and large rooms, some extending below ground. The situation was chaotic, the noise deafening, and the threat ever-present. Hours passed, and the Soviets managed to gain control of the ground floor, forcing surviving German defenders to retreat to the upper floors and the multi-story basement. The relentless fighting continued unabated, with both sides resorting to artillery barrages in their desperate bid to dislodge the enemy. It was a relentless, grueling struggle, and as the night wore on, a Soviet banner was finally raised atop the Reichstag, a symbol of their triumph over Nazi Germany. The battle for Berlin, like so many of the pivotal moments in World War II, exacted an unimaginable toll on both sides. Estimates suggest that up to 100,000 Soviet soldiers and 100,000 German troops fell in the brutal fighting, with tens of thousands of civilians caught in the crossfire. In the days that followed, the world bore witness to the first harrowing scenes of the destruction wrought upon the city of Berlin. As we reflect upon the battle for Berlin, we see a city reduced to rubble, its once proud landmarks now shattered remnants of a bygone era. The Reichstag, once a symbol of Nazi tyranny, now stood as a testament to the indomitable human spirit and the relentless pursuit of victory. Today, Berlin has risen from the ashes, transformed by time and history. The scars of war have largely faded from view, but for those who seek them, echoes of the past remain. A battle-damaged griffin, Soviet graffiti on the Reichstag's roof, and memorials to the fallen. The battle for Berlin may be a chapter in history, but its impact on the world still resonates today, reminding us of the enduring human spirit that perseveres in the face of unimaginable adversity.